Well, do I have a doozy for you today? I wanted to talk about something in particular, or someone. We'll say someone. We'll assign him the little bit of humanity that's left, and just because he's probably still breathing, the legal equivalent of falling upward. He's a giant walking, talking humanoid piece of garbage that is equivalent to a full porta potty and happens to look like a human marshmallow wearing glasses. Adam Hoffman. If you haven't heard of him, you're about to. Now, taking a look at this grimy little dipshit right here, you could probably tell by the caption under the photo that it's not good. Waco attorney can live at his residence as long as he's not left alone with his son. That could point to a few things. And don't look to the left, that's going to give it away. Maybe being too aggressive. Maybe he beat his son. Can't be around him anymore. Maybe it's drug related. But then you start to look over at the rest of the photos on the left, and it speaks a pretty loud story. Looks like every other small town shitty little league coach. Makes him very punchable, and that's just the look of him. What comes with his personality is much, much worse. It makes him more than punchable. Waco attorney charged an alleged sexual assault of child arrested again. Allegedly violated court order to stay away from children under 17. So, there you go. That lays it all out. Now, I wanted to pull this screen up so we could go through it together. I was looking to find his original charges, just so I could show you the gravity of the situation. Obviously, you don't need to see charges to know what the gravity of the situation really is. It's like the sun is being dropped on this dude's fucking forehead. And it's well deserved. I was searching to find the original charges. Now, I could probably go through McLennan County records and pull that up, but I wanted to show it here, and you can't find it. I'm sure there's somebody out there that's going to dig through everything and find it. That's great. I hope it's on there for the rest of the world to see. But for my purposes in this video, it's not easily accessible, and it should be. With that being said, excuse me while I read off my cliff notes here. Here's the timeline I have with a couple details. Feel free to research them yourself. It'll probably be good. Bring some attention to it. 2022 to 2023. After the allegations were reported and investigated, Hoffman was arrested and booked in McLennan County Jail System on a felony child sexual abuse charges. Exact public booking timestamps harder to pin down from current reporting, but it was well before the trial. June 2025, the first trial. Long story short, it ended in a mistrial. He went to trial on his original felony charge. The outcome was that the jury deadlocked 7-5 in favor of conviction. The judge declared it a mistrial. Context here being that the prosecutors had the majority, leaning guilty, but criminal convictions in Texas require unanimity. Why everybody wasn't unanimous in the fact that this dude needed to be charged as a felon and put on some registry and locked away forever is questionable to all of us normal people, but here we are. After the mistrial, McLennan DA recuses. The McLennan DA's office stepped aside because Hoffman had previously consulted with now DA Josh Teetons about the case before Teetons took office. The conflict pushed prosecution to the Texas Attorney General's office under Ken Paxton. Fast forward to last month, April 16th, 2026. A plea deal with none other than Mr. Douchebag Ken Paxton. Hoffman pleaded guilty to reduced misdemeanor charges. Those misdemeanor charges included indecent assault, displaying harmful materials to a minor, and that's it. Both are Class A misdemeanors. It was a dramatic reduction from the original felony. The AG's office justified it by saying the child did not want to testify again. Forcing testimony could further traumatize him. Without his testimony, felony conviction odds dropped sharply. Now, when you look at that as a normal person, it makes sense, right? We don't want to put the child, the victim, through something that they've already experienced. They experienced it firsthand, and then they had to go and explain it in a courtroom full of strangers. Here's why it's a crock of bullshit. I'm going to show you a part of this video.
Inside the McLennan County courtroom, the victim's mother delivering a powerful statement, saying they've been waiting 4 long and painful years, and the plea represents only a small portion of what happened. The mother says she accepted the deal to protect her son, who didn't want to testify again and now suffers from PTSD. The victim's family gave Hoffman a Bible with a note from the victim saying he forgives him. The defense says the reality of a retrial would have forced the victim to relive the trauma, also defending the decision not to require sex offender registration.
Now, to capitalize and essentially legally bankroll on the fact that this child suffers from PTSD is lower than low. It is absolute scum of the earth. They knew this was coming. They knew exactly what they could get out of it. They used this poor kid's pain and trauma to get this guy a plea deal. The original plea recommendation reportedly, and this is from Ken Paxton, 30 days jail, no sex offender registration, and initially would have allowed him to keep his license. What that really translates to is his jail time likely would have been some tennis courts or some shit. No sex offender registration, so really that just means I got away with it and I can live where I want, do what I want. Nobody has to know that I'm a piece of shit. And I can continue to do what I do and make money doing what I do, even though I'm a massive piece of shit. Now, if a normal person fucks up at work, they get fired, they lose the ability to make their own money. Essentially, their life shits the bed. Fast forward to April 27th, so 11 days after that initial push, the sentencing judge rejects those court terms. Visiting Judge Roy Sparkman reviewed the plea deal and openly criticized it. He effectively said the deal was too lenient, which we could all agree on. The funny thing about this is he changed the punishment to 60 days in jail, so just doubling it, and again, tennis courts and fucking decent food for this piece of shit. Forced resignation and surrender of law license, which sounds good from the jump until you read a little bit further, and it's only for at least 5 years. Lifetime protection order, no contact with the victim. He also gave Hoffman the option to withdraw his plea. Hoffman accepted the revised sentence. A little bit further into this month, obviously, the sentence sparked serious political blowback in Texas. There's been public protests. Pat Curry condemned the resolution. State Rep Jeff Leach requested explanations from Paxton. John Cornyn, despite how fucked up that tart is, he used it in runoff attacks against Paxton. I don't even think that's worth talking about. Calls for Paxton to explain resignation of the handling. Now, that I feel is completely necessary, but as we all know, politics, there's no decorum in politics at this point. There's nothing to say that this dude's gonna resign or that he's gonna have to resign or that his peers are gonna force him to do something that he doesn't want to do. The short version of all this, he was booked, he had a felony trial, mistrial, plea deal, 30-day recommendation, judge said it was too lenient, doubles it to 60 days, and then forces him to forfeit his law license for a minimum of 5 years. So if you're keeping score at home, life without parole got negotiated down to 2 months, which is either a masterclass in legal strategy or a spectacular reminder that the system occasionally runs on banana peels and crossed fingers. 60 days for what started as life without parole. It's not a plot twist. It's really just a clerical error with press coverage. The last thing I wanted to look at is Pat Curry speaking out against it. I don't know if it's going to mean anything or if it's just some political hoo-ha so we can put his name in the hat and say that they're doing something. Representative Curry and Chairman Leach say the outcome of the Hoffman trial was a failure of the judicial system. Hoffman does not need to register as a sex offender, as his law license is only suspended for 5 years. Predators exploit weakness in the system, said Chairman Leach. Every loophole that allows abusers to avoid accountability, delay prosecution, manipulate procedure, or regain access to children must be closed immediately. Texans are sick and tired of watching the system bend over backwards for predators, while victims and families are left devastated. This is not about politics. It's about whether Texas will stand unequivocally with child victims, said Curry. The era of excuses, procedural loopholes, and institutional cowardice must come to an end. And this is where you have to scratch your head and really wonder who's doing what where and if anything is ever being done. I'm not a state rep. I'm not a chairman. My voice does not echo as far as these folks, and I don't have the ability to affect policy aside from a vote. But these folks do. And if it's not about politics, then what is it about? Because the good majority of us normal folks that you're so removed from do unequivocally stand with the child victims. We agree that this person should be locked up forever. They should never be allowed to practice law. They should be on a sex offender registry. They're asking that any admittance of sexual assault of a child should result in registration as a sex offender, along with more guidance for plaintiff's family in situations like this. Now, I thought that was the gold standard. If somebody fucked up and they were a sex offender, they went on the sex offender registry. What's the point of having it if not everyone that's a sex offender doesn't end up on the sex offender registry? If flock cameras can exist and they can watch my every move and check my license plate every time I drive by a goddamn 7-Eleven, sex offenders should be on a registry for sex offenders. It makes a little bit too much sense. When they brought it to her, the victim's mother, about the plea deal, they made sure to have her son in the meeting with them. They knew that he didn't want to testify. She says that upon hearing that he would not testify again if they accepted the plea deal, he immediately agreed. He didn't want to have to retestify again in court in front of everybody, said Dietrich. He'd already testified once. Couldn't they use that testimony? You would figure it makes sense, especially in a world where everyone has a smartphone, everything's recorded. We all have our social credit score to follow. This child, this poor kid has already done his job. He said what he needed to say. He doesn't need to say it again. The victim's mother released a statement for today's presser. This case was treated differently because of who Adam Hoffman was and who represented him. CPS, the police, the Attorney General's office under Ken Paxton, and the judge all bent the system to protect him instead of protecting my son. They made sure my son was in the room when they raised the plea deal, knowing he didn't want to testify again. And they used that against him. They pushed the deal through with or without our approval. This is not justice, this is manipulation. CPS even told Hoffman's neighbor, "Don't worry, your daughters aren't his type." Imagine Imagine hearing that when your own child was molested for 3 years. That is disgusting. That is betrayal. I'm not even going to comment on it. The police delayed his arrest. The Attorney General's office ignored the evidence, and the judge bent bond rules to spare Hoffman hardship. Then I learned Hoffman's attorney was Jerry Morris, the same lawyer who represented Nate Paul, a central figure in Paxton's corrupt scandal and one of his financial contributors. Paxton's office gave Hoffman a sweetheart deal. That is corruption. When you have something that's so straightforward in your face, just like the case itself, it should be common sense. Why are people in charge of protecting us getting away with this? My son deserved protection. Instead, every authority protected his abuser. Ken Paxton must be held accountable. Texas needs new laws that protects victims, not predators. Ken Paxton's time as Attorney General is coming to an end this year, and he is running for a spot in the U.S. Senate. Both Rep. Curry and Chairman Leach say they have no intent on calling for Paxton's resignation, but they hope that the voters keep him out of office in May 26 primary runoff elections. But why? Call him the fuck out. Do exactly what the rest of us are going to do. Talk to your friends about it. Go online. Make your shitty Facebook post. Do something other than like, yeah, it was bad. We don't like it. They twiddle their thumbs and use taxpayer money to pay for their fucking trips. So that's where we landed. From life without parole to basically the judicial equivalent of, hey man, don't do that again. He got a slap on the wrist, or is gonna get a slap on the wrist. This started with life without parole, which made sense. Ended at 60 days. I wouldn't really call that a plea deal as much as like the dude hit the fucking fast travel button. He pressed triangle on the map and got to where he needed to be. Now what I want to end this on is if we, the people who give a shit, want to push back on this kind of thing, it's not about outrage posts or conspiracy spirals, the Facebook comment section that throws everything out there that ends up just muddying the waters. It's about doing the unglamorous work, and I know this video probably isn't the best example of that, but demanding records, asking specific questions, supporting local journalism, and at minimum holding elected officials accountable at the ballot box, that's the best we can do. If that matters, I don't know. I hope it does. Just do what you can and vote. Bad outcomes, they aren't automatically corruption, but when something doesn't pass the smell test, the answer isn't noise, it's scrutiny. If it walks like a duck, sounds like a duck, looks like a duck, it's probably a duck. And this is absolutely a duck. It's fucking quacking. There's no geese in this room. Real pressure, it comes from receipts, persistence, and forcing the people involved to explain themselves in public. I don't know how we get there, especially when you can ask these questions, but 9 times out of 10, they're just going to say you're anti-American and you probably were paid by some foreign entity. I know I'm not. I know y'all aren't either. So just keep doing what you're doing. But yeah, that's about all I got.